I actually asked to introduce the next two speakers. So we have Ross and Heather from Target. Apparently they brought their fan club with them.
Who knew?
I asked because I've been involved with Target for the last year or so and watching them grow. And so it's been a really exciting time. And I actually haven't talked to these guys and ladies, sorry, for a while, since probably March. And I was catching up with them yesterday and really finding out what they've been doing. And it's been really awesome to see this journey that they've been going down. And doing really, really awesome things around the world of DevOps and instilling a DevOps culture at Target, which, as some of you in the Minneapolis area might know, has not always been the most innovative of companies to work for. Sorry, Target people. But you guys are changing, and this is the story of their change. So without further talking from me, Heather and Ross.
Thank you. Cool. So good morning, everyone. My name's Heather O'Sullivan. I lead Target's API and integration team. I'm here today with Ross.
Yep, so Ross Clanton, I lead part of our IT operations organization. I have a group called Infrastructure Services.
And we are super excited to be here today to talk about the journey that we're on at Target around DevOps. I'm going to actually start the story by talking about my dev team in the early days of our journey. And then Ross is going to talk about some really fantastic things going on the ops side, and then the combined efforts that we're working on together to really drive DevOps at Target. But before we do that, I'll just give kind of a quick overview of Target, who we are, what we do, and talk about some of the complexities that we face. So 1962 was the opening of the first Target store, Roseville, Minnesota, by the Dayton Company. At the time, Target was offered a department store experience at a price point to reach a broader audience than department stores were doing at the time. Important to know that at Target, we call our customers our guests. So you'll hear me use the word guests a lot today. Ross will probably use it as well. It's important to us at Target to make sure that our guests feel welcomed in each of our stores and are delighted by the products and experience in each of our stores. So over the years, of course, Target's continued to expand from that single store more than 50 years ago. We now have more than 1,900 stores in 2 countries, headquarters, locations across the world, including, of course, here in Minneapolis, Bangalore, Cairo, even London. And the growth of those stores over time, the evolution of the retail market, we've also added a lot of new businesses, including pharmacy, healthcare, and banking. And that's led to a really large technology footprint. I'm sure most of you have seen our in-store technologies, like our price registers or gift registry kiosks, that machine at the registers that print out those coupons when you check out. But of course, there's a lot of technology behind the scenes as well, from the applications that make sure that our distribution centers are getting the right inventory to the right stores at the right time. Of course, all of the servers in our data centers, Target.com, our guest-facing mobile apps, the phone systems in our guest contact center, right? Like there's a lot. It takes a lot of technology to run a modern retailing company. And you can imagine over the last 50 years, our technologies really continued to expand, and we've added a lot of complexity. Of course, a lot more applications, the underlying tools and technology and infrastructure to make all of those applications work. So to keep up with that technical complexity, we've added process and organizational structure. And we have silos. We love our silos. We have lots of silos. We've added silos within our silos because we want to optimize our silos and make sure they're really efficient and working really well. So we have that technical complexity, technical debt. We have organizational complexity with all those silos. And of course, the world has changed a lot in the last 50 years, right? Everything has changed from how we communicate, how we listen to music, how we dress, and of course, we have all changed how we shop. I think I'm a mom with 2 kids. The way that I shop today is much different than the way I did a year ago, 2 years ago, right? And that's because Target guests have changed how, where, and when they want to shop. Technology is in the hands of almost all of our guests, and it's not enough for us to be a big box retailer anymore. It's about connecting with our guests anywhere, anytime, anyhow, because the entire retail market has been disrupted, right? And it's continuing to be disrupted at an increasing rate as innovation and changing technology continues to explode. So right, we need technology to remain a leader in retail. Retail's broken away from brick and mortar. So we need our technology to be flexible, scalable, and have the ability to quickly test and learn new strategies, whether it's directly for new experiences for our guests, or it's within stores, and even within our supply chain. So marketplace disruption, technical and organizational complexity, that was the backdrop of a technical strategy that we kicked off in 2012 around APIs. So we had to start creating APIs to expose core assets so that we could create cool digital experiences quickly, and really also to just simplify our internal architecture. So we started building out our platform and APIs in 2012 and focused initially on the APIs you would expect for a retailer, like products and store locations, pricing, promotions. Makes sense, of course, right? And I was really excited to be leading this effort. Now, what could be cooler than leading the API strategy for one of the world's largest retailers? Well, it was about talking about how we were going to do it. But for us, that was a target in our IT organization. It was an entirely alien concept. We were talking about doing things that were really different than how we had done things historically. We were talking about agile, not waterfall, smaller, more frequent releases, automating all of the things, continuous integration, continuous delivery, and of course, DevOps. But these were all new concepts in a really large IT shop and very different than what we had been doing. In the early days, I actually had to stop using the term DevOps. And I had to stop using it because of all just misinformation, misperceptions around what it was. In fact, I would have conversations with my peers across the organization. I could literally see them shut down as soon as I said the word. So I knew it was going to be hard. Being a change agent is hard. Driving change in a large IT organization is tough. So what I did in the early days was focus on 3 things with my team. That was talent, culture, technology. Because I knew we needed to do it because it was the only way forward. I had to figure out how to remove roadblocks and be a constraint buster for my team so that we could start demonstrating by doing. So not only did I have this aggressive agenda with my team, but I also knew it was the right thing to do for Target, and that we needed to start changing how we did technology work. So this is my awesome team. A lot of them are here today, so look for them either out of our booth and, of course, here in the audience. They like to build cool stuff. They like to innovate, try new things. The fastest way to demotivate them, and probably to demotivate all of us, right, is bureaucracy. Nothing's more of a buzzkill than running into a roadblock that stands between you and building stuff. So my job is to empower my team to get stuff done and to not spend time pushing paper around. So over the last couple of years, we've done a lot. We've made a lot of improvements. Of course, not all of that paperwork is gone, but we've removed process where we can, and we've made some great progress. One of my highlights last year actually was my team presented me a Lifetime Achievement Award for removing an entrenched process that we had that didn't add any value. In fact, it's one of those processes I'm sure we've all run into. It's not only that it didn't add any value, it actually was like negative value. It would like just suck the life out of anybody that had to go through it. It was terrible. Anyways, so I wanted results, not process adherence. And to make this work, I needed to create a safety zone so that my entire team felt comfortable with innovating, failing, learning, moving on. I needed them to trust everybody on the team and to know that everyone had each other's back and that everyone was empowered. So I provided a lot of cover for my team so that they could make awesome happen. Now, equally as important, and actually a lot harder, was to get those outside of my team to trust me and to trust what we were doing. I was actually called, and the reason this image is up here, I was actually called on a couple of occasions a hippie that wanted to live with unicorns and rainbows. I don't know, I've never been called that before. That's, okay, great. So we needed to prove, I needed to prove, the team needed to prove that it wasn't just this hocus pocus fairy dust magic. So we needed to demonstrate results. And we did that using data. We used data everywhere that we could to take the emotion out of the conversation. In fact, at one point in the early days, we actually ran a parallel development effort doing some delivery, kind of using our more traditional processes, the different silos that we would work through in order to do development work, contrasted with what we were advocating for and how we were changing the way that we were doing work. And the metrics told the story, right? We weren't preaching anymore about these different concepts. We actually could show, hey, we're delivering faster, it's less expensive, and it's higher quality the way that we're doing this. We built transparency into our development process, right? So code reviews are dead. We use pull requests, and our ops team loves this, right? There's no throwing code over the wall, and when something breaks, we know it, and we can fix it fast. We also use an IRC chat tool, so the team's talking all day long, and we have different alerts and events that stream into that. And everyone on the team, ops team included, are actively talking throughout the day. It's great. We need tools, the right tools to do our work as well. So we have full stack ownership, and the tooling matters. We want tools to make it easy to do our job, not tools that we're fighting against in order to build what we're trying to do. Needed visibility across our entire stack, and we started using Splunk. We also brought in some new tools to create the automation tool chain for Target, of course, including OpenStack, GitHub, Jenkins, and Chef. We worked with folks across the organization to do this. A couple of them are here today, like Jeff Einhorn and Jason Schlopkel. These tools really laid the groundwork for teams that would come, that were quickly joining us on this journey, and they're being increasingly adopted and used. It's actually really exciting to see. So talent, culture, technology, I had the recipe on my team for success. And so of course I need a brag slide to talk about how awesome we are. So we have more than 30 APIs running in production today, monthly volumes, more than 500 million. And a typical week, we have more than 80 deployments, and every week we see this number continue to increase. We have more than 250 commits each week. And probably one of the most important metrics to call out is how stable our platform and APIs are. We have less than 10 incidents per month, which is incredible to see. And if there's any finance nerds in the audience, I don't know that there are, but anyways, the investment that we had has an IRR of more than 100% with a really positive MPV as well. So it's been a fantastic 2 years journey on this team. So of course, building these APIs, but also laying the groundwork for the DevOps journey at Target. Even more exciting is the road that we have ahead of us. And so that is what Ross is going to tell us about.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Well, I just want to make sure we have a good mic transition here. Those results are really, really impressive, especially being in the organization and seeing the organizational and cultural constraints that Heather and her team had actually worked through to get to that point. Super impressive. While Heather was driving awesomeness over in the dev side of the world, I was kind of going through my own DevOps journey. And what really was happening is about a year ago, I was going to move into a leadership role in ops. And I was kind of coming full circle. I'd started my leadership career in ops. I'd moved to security a few years later, went to enterprise architecture more on the dev side of the world, and now I was coming back into ops. And what kind of happened over that time period is I gained a lot of empathy around the challenges that all of these functions face. And Jeff Sussna, he was talking about empathy on a Target DevOps Days, and it really resonated with me. I've been in each and everyone's shoes. I understand the pains that they're facing. The other thing I gained was kind of a broader perspective on the systemic issues that were actually impacting our service delivery. It wasn't any one team. It was the system, the organizational system we designed and how everyone was working together. So, and really what that problem is we had misaligned incentives, too many manual processes, too many handoffs, too many silos, and too little accountability. I think that's a problem that most people in this room probably know really well. But as you can imagine, running a relay race like that, it can get very uncomfortable very quickly. So now's the time for the token Phoenix project slide. I think almost every DevOps presentation has this. I saw it in Sasha's earlier. I think it's important. This is a really important slide for me. When I was coming back into ops, I actually reached out to a trusted architect in infrastructure, Matt Walburn, sitting over there, and said, hey, I've been out for a while. What can I read to get back up to speed? And so like a week before I came in, he's like, read this book. That's all he recommended. And think back to what I was just saying. I'd been in security, I'd been in ops, I'd been in dev. I read this book, I felt the pain. I read this book, I'm like, oh man. Like I've lived the role of all these main characters in this book. And it totally resonated with me. And it was a gateway for me to do more research and learn more about what this was. And it also told me how misinformed I actually was about DevOps. I thought I knew what it was prior to this, but I had you know, you think about Sasha's presentation this morning, I had a lot of those views that she talked through in there, and really opened my eyes. So I got passion, and when I get passion, as I have a lot of people on my team here, and they'll know this, I want to learn, I want to understand, I research everything. Blogs, conferences, internal experts, external experts. I talked to everyone I could to form my own perspective, and I learned a lot. The first thing I learned is there is a crazy subculture around DevOps filled with mythical creatures and animals and all kinds of crazy stuff that I had some early learnings. You don't want to talk about that too much internally when you're trying to drive a movement because people don't want to hear about unicorns. But more importantly, I learned how these Web 2.0 unicorns really innovated in this space and how they innovated both technically and organizationally. And it's a result, the result of that is what really started to bring some of these things to bear, like continuous delivery and infrastructure as code and things that we can now all of us can benefit from that. I learned about goats, and Michael Ducey's come in and talked to us about the goat in the silo talk too that I'm sure many of you have seen. And this idea of technologists that are hungry for full stack ownership, and they want to own more than a single technical domain. And more importantly, I started to learn how to help them expand their boundaries so that they can actually do that. And I started to learn to see and treat failure differently. If you would have asked me a year ago, failure would have been something that I would have tried to avoid at all costs, and we would have planned to a T to try to make sure that didn't happen. And I now realize its importance in driving continuous improvement into your organization. I realized that as an organization, we needed to learn to think differently. That Target, that TTS needed to learn, Target Technology Services needed to learn to think differently. Changing minds is hard. It's probably the hardest thing you can do as part of a change leadership journey. So what I did at this stage, I started to work with partners. I met with Heather a lot, with a lot of other partners. I started talking with my team and really wanted to work with people to not only mind the gap, but even recognize it existed in the first place. The mental model we were working under, you wouldn't have realized that the problem was what it really is. This is hard. I mean, it's hard because these are different concepts, and they are very different than the way we thought about the world. So what I did at that stage, I was very consistent in the messaging and the talking with folks and not overusing the word DevOps because I didn't want to turn people off, not talking about unicorns. I learned early, as I said. I actually bought 22 copies of the Phoenix Project shortly after coming into my team, and I signed it to my entire management team under me, key partners, and team members on my team that had a key role in driving this agenda, and it was like a homework assignment. Everyone had to read the Phoenix Project, and we were going to have an offsite about it. And I have an interesting story. At Velocity last year, I actually ran into Sasha Bates there, and Sasha used to work with us at Target, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and we were talking at like a social meetup, and in the course of the conversation, it came out that, yeah, I'm at Velocity, and I brought 3 managers to Velocity with me. And she gave me this look like, why would you bring managers here? This is a technologist guy. Your engineer should be here. And I'm like, I know, but... The important thing I was trying to do there was expose my managers, the people that were going to help set the direction and the course for my team, to a different way of thinking, to see the magic that actually happens at and how the collaboration and the empowerment and the passion that you see at these conferences and these technologists that are really working together. And it worked in spades. I mean, they came back and they helped drive that culture within my organization. And fast forward a year, and we've been sending engineers and technologists all over the place now. And now we're really getting down to who really probably should be at those conferences. I also saw an opportunity and made a business case to form my own Rockstar Team because I felt it was critical to accelerate building our competency both in performance engineering as well as infrastructure as code. So last year, I really stood up both of those practices within my organization. A key thing I want to do is extend the tooling that Heather brought in, that our infrastructure architecture partners brought in, the tool chain that she talked about earlier. I wanted to extend that to the enterprise and build a team that could kind of build that competency to make that happen. Not that we wanted to be another silo. That is absolutely not what our goal is. We actually have a vision to enable and empower other technologists across Target to be able to make awesome happen and get involved with these tools and use them in their own space. And that's a key thing that my team is doing day in and day out, working with other people to help them understand how to do this stuff. Like Heather, I had to create a culture where everyone could level up. It's all about learning, right? And that means doing things that are scary and things that weren't part of our culture at that point in time, experimenting with things that we didn't necessarily know about, testing, test, fail, learn, ultimately succeeding, though, which is the key thing. And the key here is this: you need this to get to a learning culture and ultimately to drive the continuous improvement that you're able to do if you're doing DevOps in your organization. I had to fully empower this team, which was hard in the environment that we were in at that time. And I'm super proud. Many of them are here today, and I'm so proud of all these guys for embracing and championing these principles before they were even as culturally accepted as they're starting to be at Target. If that wasn't enough, we started doing Lego ops. We embraced the tool chain. We learned about how to use it. We started to think of our infrastructure as building blocks and reusable infrastructure as code that can be stitched together in many ways from a service delivery perspective. And that gives us flexibility in our service delivery. With this flexibility, we've started to test and learn some different service delivery models, and we're still working through a lot of this. And with the goal being figuring out which models are going to go the furthest in delighting our customers, our internal customers, in many cases would be dev. And keying in on that customer orientation, we partnered with our infrastructure architecture organization and are starting to define end-to-end services across our infrastructure that would have typically spanned many, many silos and takes a very long time to work through. We started doing value stream analysis, and I won't go into a deep definition of what it is, but it's a lean analysis tool that allows you to highlight waste in your service delivery. And it's key. We highlighted the waste in our service delivery, and we got super transparent. We started sharing the results and sharing where we were seeing waste that we can improve. We wanted to bring attention to the changes that we needed to make. For us, if you can think back to my handoff silo slide, you know, a large source of our waste is the back and forth and the handoffs that have to go between teams to get something done. It's painful, and it takes a lot of time, and it's not adding value to that end service. We also started to see a new problem. Demand for our services was increasing pretty rapidly. A lot of people want to figure out how to automate all the things, and we now had a team that was competent and had a deep skill set in doing that. We had already been following an agile approach and methodology to do all of our infra code, but we even kind of accelerated and picked it up another notch. We introduced what we call flash builds. And flash builds, think of a full day, 2 4-hour sprints filled with sprint planning, retrospectives, demos, and highly disciplined Scrum Master that can really lead you through that kind of a sprint. You have to be super disciplined to be able to do a 4-hour sprint and get to all of those components. This was important because it allowed us to optimize our team's time, but it also allowed us to pull in the partner SMEs that need to be part of this effort with us so that they can learn, and we also need their expertise, like the various platform owners. And they can't free up time to do full sprints. I mean, they're all busy doing all their other work too. So this allowed us to target their time into very short windows that they could do, where we actually were able to get everyone working together on these, really aggressive sprints. The teams had a ton of fun, got faster results, and one example of this, our very first flash build, one of the engineers did the analysis in the room, and what we got done in 8 hours would have taken many, many, many weeks following our traditional siloed delivery processes. So where's Target at in terms of kind of how much we've adopted this stuff? Just after Heather really got it in, a lot of this has been in the last year. We're at a point now where our pipeline has done nearly 7,000 builds, and this is across our organization, spanning over 1,200 Jenkins jobs, testing 166 cookbook repos. This is all being done by 71 team members across 11 teams, and those numbers are growing every single day. Super impressive, and they're all heading in the same direction. Our cookbook repo is a source of our infrastructure code. This allows us the ability to do custom community and wrapper cookbook reuse. We're ever expanding our test coverage. Every day, new unit and functional tests are added into that pipeline. Every change to any cookbook triggers a new build, even if we're changing comments in the cookbook. And our CI pipeline has hooks to chat ops, email, and we even have more social integration on the way. So I'm going to shift to how Heather and I came together to start driving this movement across Target. One thing we realized is we weren't the only ones focused on this stuff. Many groups are focused on automation. Some, like the .com organization, were even exploring DevOps. We felt it was critical to build a coalition of folks with a vision to enable and empower technologists across Target to automate. The time was really ripe to expand that conversation on DevOps. So interesting last winter, Heather reached into me after seeing on DevOps Weekly an article of another company that had done their own internal DevOps days. We started talking about it, and we're like, well, maybe we should do this. She's a dev leader, I'm an ops leader, we're super passionate about this. We want to get our organizations more aligned. We should do our own internal DevOps days. So we decided, let's do it. The other thing we decided is let's start calling it what it is. We had avoided the term DevOps because it was turning certain folks off. We embraced it because the community that understands it, it's super important to them. It means something to them, and we weren't going to avoid that anymore. We had 3 goals for our DevOps days, to connect people across the company that were interested in this topic, for people to share experiences with the experts that were working on these things, and to learn how to do things differently from DevOps experts. We've had Rob Cummings in present, Mike Ducey, Jeff Sussna, Fletcher Nickel, and thank you guys for all coming in. The results, we've had 2 DevOps Days events at Minneapolis, very similar format to what we have here today. We've had 30 presenters across those events. The first event was in Minneapolis in February. We had 160 people in attendance. The energy was so positive that our Bangalore, India partners wanted to get more in the mix too. So last month we did a global event across India and Minneapolis, DevOps Days in both locations, same day. We had over 300 people in attendance for that, which was super awesome. We also, being DevOps folks, we want to get data about everything. So we got 8 out of 10 on the awesome scale from our survey respondents, and 100% said we need to do this again. This allowed us to build a community, which is super important. By connecting our team members, we've been able to enable them to boundary span across their traditional silos. We've expanded on this by having regular open lab sessions for people to get hands-on advice from subject matter experts. We've continued to expand the use of social media to drive this message. We've hosted an automation hackathon, and we plan to continue doing that. And we actually had our very first automation demo spotlight yesterday, where teams doing automation from all across Target now are doing more public demos to share across Target what they're doing. As a community, we started questioning what should be and how should we be doing things differently. And a lot of people the resistance we saw to the new methods that we were starting to put in place, we didn't view that as a negative. We wanted to practice hug ops here. We wanted to pull the people in close, be inclusive, and help people come to a common understanding around what this is. One way we did this, we actually, a few months ago, published our own Flipboard magazine called Make Awesome Happen. In less than 3 months, we've had 150 readers already, almost 3,000 page flips, and covering 62 articles, and we're adding stuff every single day. Even you guys can, if you scan that QR code and you have Flipboard, you can even subscribe to the magazine that we have internally. And it's really a central collection of web content. And the reason, I want to jump back here, this focused communication is really important, and the learning is needed because we're really on a mission to do things differently to meet the current realities of doing not only retail, but technology in the new digital economy. By empowering our technologists across Target, by giving them the freedom to innovate, it's really the reason that we hired them in the first place. To use our outside voice, this is a big deal for Target to start talking externally. This has been a long time coming to be able to do more of this. And whether it's Dan Cundiff, posting in our Target Pulse blog around DevOps, whether it's Jeff Einhorn, who's up there presenting at ChefConf about the awesomeness that we're doing, Heather and I here today, and Target sponsoring events like this. We're a gold sponsor out there. And we're trying to start something new. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be small and simple, but we need a place for it to grow, and ultimately to create a culture of awesomeness that everyone wants to catch. One focused on getting stuff done and progress over perfection. We didn't spend a lot of time on culture, but the need to pay attention to culture, both what you have and what you want to create, cannot be overstated. It's the most critical and foundational step for all of this. If I were to leave you with one takeaway, summarizing our journey, it would be to take the leap. Being a change agent is not easy. It doesn't matter what the size of the organization is. It takes persistence, passion, resilience. Most importantly, it takes great partners like Heather and many of the other partners we have in the room that are willing to either take that step with you or they're standing on the other shore and encouraging you along. For Target, we've got a lot of work ahead of us as we work out how to mature automation and continuous delivery across the enterprise, how we test and learn different models of getting stuff done, and continue to create and share our story. But the most fun part of this is even though we're early in our DevOps journey, we're increasing velocity, and it's been a really, really fun journey. I have a question real quick, and I know I'm just at the end of time, or a comment. From everyone that works at Target, could you guys just stand up really, really quick? Everyone. I think we have about 50 people here today. If that's not a sign that we've got momentum in this space, I don't know what is. And so thank you. Thank everyone. I appreciate you guys all coming here. And if you haven't heard, we're hiring, and we're gonna keep hiring. And we'd love to have you guys join us. Stop by our booth. There's a lot of cool people here that know this stuff way more than I do, but way more than Heather does. Talk to them, learn what we're doing. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Is this on? We are short on time, but I think we probably have room for one question if somebody has a question that they are just dying to ask.
Hi, thanks for the talk. Difficult topic, difficult question, but I think a lot of us are probably wondering, as we all know, Target had the big credit card breach recently. How has that impacted this culture that you're trying to build? Has it been an opportunity to see things differently? Have you gotten pushback from higher up the chain about having to do things differently in the wake of this? I mean, I don't know how much you can talk about, honestly. I know it's not your fault, but has it affected this momentum that you've been building in any way?
It hasn't. I mean, we've been on this journey for prior to that happening, and I don't think it's really had any bearing on the journey that we've been on. There's been a lot of things at Target that feed into why we want to do DevOps, and go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to add to that. I mean, everybody was kind of curious about configuration management before. Oh yeah, sure. I was just going to add to what Ross said, that it hasn't necessarily changed the culture, but I think like more and more people now after the event are even more interested in things like config management and automation, right, to help enforce config management. So that's something that we're trying to drive.
Good.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
And we'll do more questions. Go to our booth if you have questions.